All right, I'm Jari. You'll hear more about me during the presentation, but I want to introduce light sparring to you first. This is a small method I've come up with to combine two things I love, lighting and martial arts. So how many of you have ever practiced a martial arts, boxing, something? Great, I will be talking a lot to you, you will understand everything. How many of you are lighting designers? Wow, good. And I actually consider most people here lighting designers because you work with light. You guide people how to work with light. You work with light. You're a designer, essentially. All right, light sparring. Connecting these two things, it's a bit of a playful thing I do just to make talking fun. I use it for seminars, I use it for workshop, I even spar other professionals using this. They give me a challenge, a problem, and I'll give them a sparring session. It's an easy way to sell myself into the project. And the background with me, I'll go back into that after a few slides. So this is the structure of my speech today. So it's lighting versus sustainability. And yes, it is a fight. I'm trying to give you a designer's perspective on things, and I'm using this very boxing type of structure to my presentation. We'll start with a warm-up. That's essentially pretty pictures. You'll love them. Then we go into round one, which, as you know, if you've been practicing or fighting, it's provocation. You try to find out what the opponent knows, and you try to figure out a strategy. And the next two rounds, you try to disassemble that strategy into something concrete and hopefully knock out someone. And then the fight is over. So it's good that I have a bit more time. Let's see how exhausted I am. Fighting is a hard business. So let's get on with it. The purpose of my presentation, again, light in a very light manner, to talk about serious business in a bit more fun way, hopefully. So let's explore a bit how lighting design and lighting designers can advance sustainability. And there you have the coach, that's me. So my martial arts background, believe it or not, spans 25 years. I had to stop it due to kidney failure already in 2010. And I have the similar kind of background in lighting. I've been a lighting designer for 25 years. Now, obviously that profile is a bit of a joke, you know, lighter, fighter. But my name is Jari Vuorinen. My nickname is Remo, if you want to use it. My stable, where I fight out of, is Helsinki, Finland. And I'm one of the partners of Lighting Design Collective. And age is already wrong. I'm actually 48 at this point. Height is pretty okay. Weight, around 75-ish. I used to fight in the 65 kilo category. Fights, which essentially means projects, 300 or plus. Won, well, you don't really ever win a project, do you? Lost, well, undisclosed, we don't talk about lost projects. Good. So that's enough about me. Let's start with the warm-up. So, who am I, what do we do? Pretty pictures. So like I said, I work for a company called Lighting Design Collective. We have 3 offices in Europe. Our headquarters is in Madrid. We have small offices in London and Helsinki. We are a tiny company. Altogether across the 3 offices, we are 20 people. Yet we still work across the globe. We work internationally and our focus is purely lighting. And here's a little bit of video if we can get it up and running. So what we are known for is basically dynamic lighting and creating narratives using dynamic lighting. And this is what we want to do. This is what we are now focusing on, and we are focusing on it very, very strongly these days. But we also have, and the following images will prove that there's a background to all kinds of lighting. And as you know, fighters always boast before their fights. They tell about their achievements, so this is my egocentric moment telling about myself here. But again, you can watch the video, it doesn't have sound, which is good, but you can see the scale of the projects, you can see the moving lights happening, the dynamics. And one of our philosophies is that we still, even if it looks like blinking lights, we try to make it natural. We always try to make it brand related. We always want to connect to the client values. And these days, we are really, really happy to use video projections. The video projectors are getting cheaper. to us, we are agnostic about light sources. Projector is just another light source, a very creative and dynamic one. Our scope of services includes a lot of HQ headquarters projects. This one is from Tieto in Finland, one of the major data and IT companies in Finland, and it's expressing the real-time data flowing through the building. This one is a similar theme for UPM, which is the biggest forestry company in Finland, and it's the light of forest kind of trickling down onto the forest floor. We also do quite a lot of exhibition lighting. I traveled here directly from Jerusalem, where we're working on the National Library of Israel. So very interesting projects. And again, the following images will not be moving, so I'm going to have you look at the dynamics for a while. We do quite a lot of rendering, not lighting calculations really. If we do lighting calculations, it's much for ourselves, so that we just make sure that we are meeting up with possible standards. But lighting calculations we do not show to our clients. Why? They don't understand them. I show them that yes, we have enough luxes, and they just nod their head and say, yes, you're the expert, we believe you. So it makes much more sense to try to do something photorealistic and to express the light the way it looks. This one is a familiar project here close by. It's the old town of Tallinn, competition win from 2017. The project itself was really quick, and we got to finish it in 2019, everything installed. And some of you saw that last night. Yeah, so again, egocentric thing going on here. This is a project in Helsinki called Helsinki Outlet. It's a retail environment, an outdoor retail environment, where we were approached by a Norwegian client to say, could you come up with something? And what we came up with is two simple things, which is basically just expressing the space, kind of copying their logo in this round shape with projections, and then this kind of eye-catching piece that we call the moment magnet, which you can see on the walls here. There's a video coming up of it soon. I personally really like this project because it kind of condenses a lot of the things we've been working for the past 10 years. Dynamic lighting with a story, things you can change, things that react to real-time events, but also very good, normal, nice, moody lighting. And here's the video. Quick one, this. So basically what it is, it's a LED screen, but we turn it the other way around, so it's indirect lighting and not aggressive LED pixels in your face. And what you can do with the software is very complex. The lighting can be triggered by weather events in real time. It can include customer data. Almost anything that you can code into the system can trigger the lighting. It's mostly generative, which means that there's a computer constantly calculating the content. So it's not a video loop. Because what happens with video loops in architecture is they get really boring. It never is a Eurovision Song Contest where everything needs to be millimeter precision and the show lasts for 4 minutes. Architecture doesn't work like that. Architecture should be there for at least 20 years. So the lighting needs to respond in a similar way. So it's responding to the environment, it's ever changing without being too obnoxious. And of course we love our partners. So. And then a couple of images of the scale. I've chosen Finnish projects, obviously easier to talk about them, they're close by. But we do things in the interiors and exteriors. We do master planning, which basically is something cities all across the world are doing. And then we do tiny projects. So when people ask me what is your biggest project, I tell master plans. What is the smallest one? Well, it can be a statue somewhere. So that's the scale. And the same goes for the interiors. We work with infrastructure, but not in a typical way. So again, when we are invited into a project, we try to bring that added creativity. So this one is a controversial project in Turku, cost 25 million and took too many years to complete. And this is our render, and it's just showing these panels that are also, again, dynamic. So everything is moving. And this can respond again to real-time events, and it's actually calculating the flow of people on the bridge. And then we do a bit more traditional projects like spas, offices. This one is in Shanghai, China. And basically what I want to show with this image is that not all lighting needs to be coming down from the ceiling. In this case, it's mostly indirect floor standing lighting, and then just nice, eye-catching, small, simple interventions. As you can see, integrated LED lighting. That's the wonderful thing about LEDs. You can put them almost anywhere these days. And then we do a lot of headquarters projects. Again, the scale can go from very small scale, very simple, to something more massive and more dynamic. And then a couple of images more from Shanghai, because it's a lovely, lovely project. And then some wonderful images of the project over here. And I always love to mention our partners. So this one we did together with, obviously, the city planning department, and together with local partners here, Måne Valgustus. And we chose to use one luminaire manufacturer only, which was Igusini. And the reasoning behind that is that it makes maintenance and service much more easier. It could have been any lighting manufacturer, but we got the tools from them, so it made our life very easy. And there were a lot of compromises we had to do. Obviously, it's a medieval setting, so you cannot put lighting wherever you want. You cannot install them or mount them wherever you want. So we really needed to test everything, show it to the city, get their approval, and then the project move on rapidly, I must say, which is a very good thing. The story behind this is that we don't want the lighting to shout. We want it to whisper. So instead of doing a Disney approach on this colorful lighting or just even powerful flood lighting, we wanted it to be a bit more subtle and let people discover the old town walls, show some scars on those walls, and create a narrative story based on that idea. Personally, I have to say this is one of the best projects I've ever worked on. Everything was smooth, the people were fantastic, and we had a really good time doing it. One of my colleagues, Antti, is here also. He was working for LDC at the time, and we had a fantastic time doing this. We were really emotional last night walking through the project. Having said that, there are still issues with some maintenance and service things there, but that happens. And yeah, so we focus on the playful things. We're not very serious at what we do. We take it seriously, but we're not always serious. We do also residential. It's not a huge part of our scope, but sometimes we get to do this. And this one is in Helsinki. Kruunuvuorenranta is a new area in Helsinki, which is known for its light art. It is unique in the world. There is no such place where the master plan dictates that you need to have light art in all the residential buildings. So it's a huge opportunity for light artists locally and internationally. And a good thing to maybe catch on in other places too. Our bread and butter is hotels and hospitality. So this is what we do. Fantastic projects, wonderful to do, but what you really learn in this setting is how to create lighting that is not allowed to cost a lot. It might be a 5-star hotel, but trust me, they do not want to put money into the lighting. So you need to be creative. You need to choose the tools right, and you need to make a couple of compromises, but you still need to be able to create the atmosphere. This project in Oman is set in the mountains, very unique. So everything, although outdoor lighting is very low scale, dimmed down. So all of those small lanterns you see, those were all designed by LDC. And then, as I mentioned, residential and master planning. This is a project in Prague, Czech Republic. And this was unique mainly because it was a huge cooperation between 12 architects, ourselves, and a number of stakeholders. These are renders we do, so again, they're not lighting calculations, but they are trying to create the correct atmosphere. Last but not least, we also do things that other people call light art. We're not really sure about that ourselves. Are we light artists? We don't know, but we have fun doing this. This is again the UPM project that I mentioned earlier, just a couple of images. It's an atrium space where we actually did daylight calculations to find out that it's actually quite dark. So there was a huge opportunity to create something with lighting. So we created these individual panels that has individual controllable pixels behind them. And again, the story, the narrative was very easy to create for this project. They're a forestry company, their history and branding is rooted in the Finnish forest, so of course it's the light in the forest. and again using software so that it's ever changing. We always, and I say always because we always do it, we borrow Brian Eno when he was asked to describe what is ambient music. His answer was, it's like a river. So it's always the same river, but there's always something changing. And that's what you can do with generative content. It's always the same framework, but it's constantly changing within that framework. And what happens is that it's not boring. It's not, again, it's not a loop. The human brain is very good at recognizing patterns. When you do generative content, there is no patterns. It's just a river flowing through the building. And yes, then we do some stranger interventions when needed. This is for a shopping center in Helsinki, and we were asked to do basically a permanent light installation. We decided to do something that also has a very, very distinct daylight feeling to it. So it's 2,000 suspended Kevlar ropes, yellow in color, and they are slightly loose, so when the wind catches on them, they move, hence the name Väre, which means shimmer in Finnish. And then during nighttime, it's just very, very simple static uplighting, just to show the ropes. And then there are these wind chimes within that, and then there are a couple of benches that you can actually sit on, so people walk into this. Children play around there, and it's super nice. But talking about nice, this is where the beautiful pictures end. It's time to go for the provocation. All right. And a disclaimer at this point. I am here talking only from my own perspective. Lighting is not sustainable. I think we can all nod our heads and say yes. Why? Well, a lot of reasons, but maybe if I try to take this on a personal level, I will mention very provocatively that I have never been in the energy-saving business. I'm a lighting designer. Now, what happens when you're a lighting designer is that by byproduct, you might be able to create something that is actually saving a bit of energy. Reason being that when you see a space as a lighting designer, you want to decide what to show. So you put the light where it's needed. You put the light where it's needed to create atmosphere, functionality, whatever it is, it's still a conscious decision. The other conscious decision we make as lighting designers is to put in a control system. So dimming it down is not a problem, switching the lighting off is not a problem. But again, it's a byproduct. We don't start out by saying, let's make this very, very sustainable. At least I don't, I admit that. And you've seen a lot of numbers today. I won't be showing you numbers. I'll give you this one. And again, it's just off the internet, so I do not know the accuracy of this, but it should be pretty right. What it's saying is that 15% of global electricity consumption is used up by lighting. That's quite a heavy responsibility to carry, 15%. The rest, I would guess, is industry, heavy industry, and then people in the room might know better what happens to the rest of the energy consumption. But this is a huge number. And what we can also conclude is that most lighting is actually bad. Two reasons for that, again, in my experience. Number one reason is either bad design or no design at all. Second reason, wonderful design, but no service or bad service, maintenance that is. Those are the two things that destroy the world of lighting. So I'll repeat those. Bad design or no design. Bad service and maintenance or no service and maintenance. And at this point, the lighting designers in the room should be going like this, because you've all done a wonderful project that you're proud of. You visit it 2 years later and you go, what's going on? It's either switched off because the client decided to save energy, or the maintenance has failed and something is broken. And again, you've seen similar images today, and I want to thank the morning speakers. Wonderful data, good stuff. But as a coach, I will tell you, or I'll ask you a question. What is the most important thing when you are training for an objective? It's repetition. That is the only way to achieve mastery. So we will repeat some things here today. Light pollution. obviously described as being light in the wrong places, as simply as that, and done in the wrong way. What I think is the most annoying to me personally is glare. And again, this can happen both in the exterior environment or in the indoor environment. It doesn't really matter. This is like universal. So if you cause glare, you will really, really do a lot of harm. And it's wonderful to compare lighting to something almost similar, something that is intangible. And quite typically, we compare it with sound. So glare and light pollution in general is noise. It's noise to the ear, glare is noise to the eyes. Quite simple. So when you're explaining these terminologies of light pollution to laymen that are not scientists, don't have a really good understanding of what it's about, explain it like this. You don't want to be in a noisy room, you don't want to be in a glary room. And light trespass, very simply, don't bother the neighbors, keep the light where it should be. Should be relatively easy to do, but as we know, especially in the urban environment, seems to be a bit difficult to control the lighting. And the same goes for clutter. This might be very heavily also in the same category as glare, so this is absolutely noise. How do you control this? All of these buildings, they want to have their, or clients, they want to have their brand exposed, they want to show communication. We saw that last night also with the ones that went to the walk. So even here in Tallinn, you will see a lot of buildings communicating with you. They are trying to tell a story. They might be showing support for Ukraine, or they might be telling you that it's Independence Day. It's fine, but it still adds to that kind of noise. Not to mention all other light sources that you can see. Sky glow. Well, that then is mentioned in the general descriptions of light pollution as something that happens in the inhabited areas. So we are spewing out light into the inhabited areas. Well, this still goes for the cities too. Again, very simple, 4 things. Now, if we go back to that kind of martial arts terminology, this is the opponent right now. And the opponent is fighting with very simple tools, like in boxing. You have a jab, you have a hook, you have an uppercut. Maybe if you do Muay Thai, then you have a knee there somewhere. Those are 4 elements. You need to be able to block them. Very easy, just come up with a strategy. Practice, 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 and come up with a strategy. And by the way, at this point I say congratulations to the translator. This might be very hard to translate. Thank you for the good work. Good, so that was the provocation. Now let's go into round 2. So this is the things we do as lighting designers. Now, I hope, since we have now a bit of extra time, if there's something you see in the presentation that raises your hair up, makes you really angry, write it down and we'll discuss it later on. But I think you pretty much will agree with some stuff that we have here. So what do we do? Well, I'd like to quote some intellectuals. Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And we are being quite heavily hit by light pollution in the face, all over the body. So we really need to do something about it. And even if we come up with a wonderful plan, we have regulations, we have standards, we are able to somehow combine them into some things, it's still a plan that most likely we need to improvise within. And again, thank you to the speakers in the morning. That's a good start, but we need to figure out how to actually do those things. Well, we could always just, turn everything to LEDs, right? That will save the world. We already know that. Well, it doesn't, let's be honest. So it helps a bit for sure, and it helps with the energy. We get the energy consumption down, but we've all seen the other stuff. The development has been too quick. We don't, as designers, even have time to react. Everything changes in 6 months. Manufacturers come up with new products, and everything is again new. We have to try to keep in track with that. And it's mission impossible, quite honestly. So maybe we need to, in that case, look back to a bit of old school design, figure out what really worked back in the days, and then just bring that to the LED world. Now, having said that, LEDs are wonderful. New technologies are wonderful, but we need to use them responsibly. I mean, after all, LEDs are great, but so was the incandescent bulb, for those who remember what that is. So we need to take responsibility. That's what I'm saying. Now we are, I think, and again, I repeat, I am talking from a personal perspective here. We are not taking enough responsibility as designers in this matter. We've all seen this, the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, recycle. It's a wonderful mantra, it works for a lot of things, but then if we take a really harsh look at, again, from a lighting perspective at this, reduce is easy. Dim it down, switch it off. That's already been done. Reuse, yeah, some players are reusing, some are trying to aim for circular economy. They take down the old luminaires, fix them up, put in new light sources, LEDs of course, and then you have a new product basically, and you expand the lifetime of the product. Because let's face it, most lighting is actually maintainable and serviceable. Let's say you have an aluminum luminaire, nothing's going to happen with the aluminum, but you need to change the light source. Recycle, that's where the train stops, at least in my opinion. So I've not seen recycled lighting, at least not in a big scale. And again, if you see something that you object to, we can talk about that later on. But my point being that we are moving very slowly from linear economy to circular economy. We are partly there already with the recycling economy. Again, some players are doing their best to achieve this. And this is also a shout out to all the representatives of manufacturers here. Pay focus to this. But we are far, far, far from circular economy. So how do we as designers move forward? Well, I would like to add a couple of R's into those 3 R's. So reduce, reuse, recycle. Let's do rethink. So what I mean by this is rethink basically everything. Rethink why the light is needed in your project. I learned this the hard way. I was actually working on a facade project in Helsinki. Had a wonderful concept, looked really nice, went into the city planning department. I was like super proud of myself. I had done an excellent job. And 2 sentences into describing the concept, one of the people in charge asked me, why? Why do you want to light this building? And we were just amazed with the client. We were sitting there, oh shit, we don't have an answer for it. And we did not have an answer for it. And what that ended up being was actually obviously a disappointment for me, for the client. The client had paid, and we were not able to light the facade. So why is an interesting question. Think about that, think about the whys. I'll come back to it a bit later. Research. Well, you've seen a lot of studies and research already this morning, but designers need to dive into this. You should not be afraid of research. And when I say research, you need to divide that up to academia and personal. You can do your personal research in any way you prefer. Learn about new products, get training, look at things from a multidisciplinary angle, but also try to connect with academia. At LDC, we've done or been a part of some research projects. Some of them have been, the end result has been basically nothing for us. Some of them have been absolutely fantastic. One of them actually resulted in creating a new control software for lighting. And we were so happy with the end product of that 2-year research program that we put up a startup and we wanted to commercialize that software. And we did. So there's a startup selling software right now. So good things can come out of that. And not just the software, but what happened in our minds was that we actually created a new philosophy that we called ambient communication. That's what lighting is. It ambiently communicates things, even if you look at it from a very, very rudimentary level. In this room, for instance, we are seeing green. Well, that communicates something. It's up to your cultural background to figure out what it is. But also, if we are using warm lighting, that communicates something. Mood and atmosphere, if we're using colder lighting, it always communicates something. And that's very simple psychology, because the brain is always comparing things to natural daylight. So yes, ambient communication. And we took it a bit further to have sorry, the software be a tool to control, and this sounds harsh, but it controls human behavior. That is the aim of the software. The aim of the software is not to dim down and up lighting, or even to control projections. It's to actually ambiently control people. We've had interesting studies and projects using that software. And then the hard bit. Rethink and research, they're the fun bit. You can do that. The hard bit is re-evaluate. So try to re-evaluate whatever you are doing, because that is very, very hard to do, because you need to take a hard look at yourself, you need to take a hard look at the business and the profession in general, but you need to do it. So, just picking up a couple of words from the previous slides, think and research, and you'll find the why. And the why can be just like we did at LDC, that we just come up with a philosophy, ambient communication. Your why might be something different. And this is a business strategy. So instead of saying that we as LDC do mood boards are essentially copying things that have already been done. So we take an image from the internet, we see, okay, that's already been done. We put a bit of wall grazing, we put a downlight. It looks wonderful, easy to explain to the client. But instead of doing that, we tell the client, we're LDC, and we're proud of it, bold, obnoxious maybe. And we say that, no, we do ambient communication. And we start by studying your project and what that means in your project. If you are not happy with that, that's fine. There are other designers out there, but that's our starting point. So we as designers try to dictate and tell what we think we are actually doing. Right now, and even ourselves, again, myself, I've never realized that before. What we have been doing as designers is try to fill every kind of tick everything in the box of the client. Yes, we want mood, atmosphere, energy savings, this and that and that. Again, mission impossible. So be bold about defining who you are and what your why is. Evaluate. Well, that's the tricky bit again. Did you reach your why? So when you did the project, you did the ambient communication or whatever you did did you nail it? How do you measure this? Again, we've been talking about measurements this morning. How do you evaluate how you actually achieved what you did? Tricky one. I don't have an answer to how to exactly do that. Still in the process. I'll let you know when I get it. But I'll give you a question. Now again, my martial arts background also included coaching other people. I had wonderful masters, and masters and teachers are funny people. They are just amazing. And they're amazing because they ask you, you understand? Probably in broken Chinese or broken English. You understand? And when I put that question out to you, I don't expect you to understand. You will understand it from the time point and reference where you're looking at it from now. And then when you keep training, practicing, doing your research, years later, one day you'll see, okay, now I understand what the teacher meant. And the teacher really didn't mean anything. He just asked you, you understand? Yeah. So the teacher is the finger pointing at the moon. Now, darkness design, this is just a very quick jump to a bit of a trendy topic. It's been trendy for, I would say, 15 years among lighting designers. And I'm sure the talk, I think, that was cancelled today would have been wonderful to hear about it more. But to me, darkness design, coming again from Finland, and we love the darkness, it's actually about very simple things. And when you know your thing, you can simplify stuff. To me, darkness design is just light where it's needed and light where it has a purpose. That's what it's all about. And of course, respecting the darkness. So, light where needed. Not going to go too into this picture. It can be like this. I mean, I don't have a problem with this. I wouldn't do this way, but I don't have a problem with it. There's enough light. Or then it can be very functional, very dynamic, but the light needs to be where needed. Simple things. And maybe you should also think about light with rethought purpose. Again, rethink. Now, we've heard a lot of things about stakeholders reacting to lighting, and in this case, city inhabitants reacting to lighting. Very hard, and that's what my question to Eva was about. That how do you frame the questions? It's very hard to do in like an open environment. It's slightly different when you move into indoors and different environments. This one is an example from retail, where clearly the client has understood that changing the lighting to LED, having a bit of dimming, having a bit of control over what the client actually sees, causes something to happen at the cash register. Now this is something any client will understand. Okay, do something and you get money for it. Try to find those. They might not always be so obvious, especially in the city environment. And yeah, just another example of this kind of rethinking is essentially trying to find the right Excel sheet to look at. If you're used to working with clients, the typical process is that you do a wonderful concept, client approves, and then it goes into implementation, and the project manager jumps in, and immediately something happens. He's looking at a completely different budget Excel. And then you start the saving process. That can be avoided if you have a strong enough reasoning to do the lighting. Financial reasoning is a good one. Good. Was that too heavy? Good, because this is supposed to be light sparring. Round 3, the last round. We're almost there, guys. Now, the things we need to do, in my opinion, we need to challenge. We need to challenge the status quo. In Finnish, there's a nice saying, mikään ei muutu, jos kukaan ei suutu, which means that if no one gets angry, nothing is going to change. And that is very true for a lot of things. And lighting is one of those. We need to challenge the industry. We need to challenge the value we as designers are producing. We need to challenge the client. We obviously do that every day. We need to do it maybe a bit differently. And we need to challenge ourselves. Now the status quo, I think this is the most dangerous thing. I don't have a quote for this. I don't know what the answer is. What I'm saying is that maybe we should do like Muhammad Ali. We need to move. We need to keep away and avoid the punches. The industry is much more easier, one of my favorite topics. Now, you probably know the law of the instrument. It's by Abraham Maslow, very famous quote. Basically saying that if the only tool you have is a hammer, all of the problems are going to look like a nail. And that's what we as lighting designers are used to. A manufacturer creates a spotlight. Even if it's wonderful, it does the trick, it becomes a one-trick pony. We only have one tool. We get to know it really well, and we use it all over the place. Nothing bad with that, but maybe we could take another approach to this and seriously tell the industry what we want, push for products that are actually useful, help them in designing those products, and have them delete bad products. Now we all understand that there's levels of products. There's the Rolls-Royce, there's the Mercedes-Benzes, then there's the Volkswagens and so forth, if we use clever analogies. But still we can help that Volkswagen manufacturer to at least create a decent product. So it's all about collaboration. Collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. Value. Yeah. So we can fix fights with whatever hand we want. Kind of a loose reference here. But what we as designers claim to do, we claim to create the space with lighting. This is what we tell the architects, this is what we tell our clients. We create the space. After all, everything you see is reflected light, so we kind of right in that. We claim to create a sense of safety. We kind of right in that too. We claim to create the mood and atmosphere. Yes. The big question about these are, what is the value to the client in these? And to me, the most easiest to explain and to get, whoops, let's see where we get, is this, safety. Everyone can understand. But does it make sense for all the lighting designs we do? No. In a retail environment, safety is maybe not the number one issue. Maybe it's the mood and atmosphere. So we always need to find this. And yes, we claim to create energy savings. But the true question there again is, we claim to create value. Value for whom? How well do we know the stakeholders? What is the value? And yes, we need to challenge the client. Now, let's not do it fighting. We can lift the client up. We can always do that. But what we need to do is a bit of psychology. We need to get the client on our side from day one, or at least from week one. And typically how we do it, I kind of explained it, is that we try to create a concept that actually creates value for the client. That's the only way for them to commit to the project. Yourself, Bruce Lee, wonderful philosopher. He actually studied philosophy, if you didn't know this. He was a wonderful film star and tried to bring that into his movies. So I guess the quote says that you need to practice, practice, practice. And even if you are using just that one hammer, use it really well. And just some considerations to the end of my presentation, just as a recap. Again, repetition makes the master. Design light with considerations, simple things. Avoid glare, avoid light trespass, create value, and really, really address real needs. Collaboration is always the key. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jari, for this very great and visual presentation. I'm sure there are lots of questions from the audience. Please. Maybe I'll ask myself then. What's the project that you're most proud of? Like, aside from the Tallinn project, of course. But,
yes, the Tallinn project. There are no others. No, I think it's a trick question really, because when you work on a lot of projects, you should again rethink in a different manner. So you should rethink, what did you learn yourself from the project, and almost all of them teach you something. Now, Tallinn taught me. I mean, it reminded me of the power of just using one luminaire to create a mood or tell a story. Other projects have other values that are fantastic, but I think you need to just try to take like a holistic view and really, really figure out what you learn on the way. It's a process.
yes, so it's more reflecting the experience that you as a designer gain throughout the process. It might not be the best or most astonishable result, but rather the growing process that is
exactly, and that will help you with the next project. So you always kind of create this book of knowledge, and then you can always learn from that going on. So yeah,
perfect.
That's what it is.
Do we have any questions?
I have one. Thank you, Jari. You mentioned that in Finland we like darkness, and there's a lot of cultural differences. Mm. So when you've been working, for example, in Israel or Oman, do you see a different approach to lighting, different attitudes?
Yes. Quite typically, and again, just my opinion, is that when you go south from here, people start appreciating a lot more light. Now, my thinking behind that is because they don't have so distinct darkness and light, so their nights and days are pretty similar every day. So it's quite easy to understand why they want similar lighting conditions every night. in China, for instance, for the Shanghai project, I remember actually doing the lighting calculations for that, then going forward with them, and the client was saying, we need more light, we need more light, we need more light. And you go, okay. So kill the mood and atmosphere, just, do a lot of light. And also, well, you mentioned the Israel project, flew directly from Jerusalem here. So I was working on a museum project, and I was doing the permanent exhibition gallery. And we dimmed down the lighting to like really, really minimal, the general lighting, so that the exhibits really popped out. And it was twofold. The local lighting designer was saying that it's too bright, and the exhibition designers were saying this is perfect. And of course, I liked that too. So it's cultural, but also personal, and that makes this very tricky.
Yes, we have another question.
From the projects you've shown, it's clear that, as you said yourself, the dynamic lighting is very important for the work that you do. How do you see that translate into city plans, in city master plans? Because there, I think there's more static light, there's less appetite for a lot of dynamics. So how do you see that, and is it a trend that is changing?
Yeah, I think personally, I would hope that the age of media facades is gone, because they are, honestly, they're quite useless. So having said that, maybe the only approach that has a value and reasoning behind it is that if you can do a facade lighting that is close to light art, then it starts making sense. Because most likely it's not going to scream at you. It has a story to it, it has a narrative. And yes, you can then partly use it as a branding tool. And that's what we've been trying to push for, that if we do a facade lighting, that it is more like a borderline light art piece. Does it work? I don't know, but we're happy with kind of doing that. But I'll repeat, so I would hope that media facades would disappear. They don't really bring anything to the world.
Do we have, yes, we have one other question.
Actually, I had a comment. Thank you very much, Jari. Yesterday, we also enjoyed the city walk, where we were able to look at your project in the old town of Tallinn, where it really shows that light is a very powerful tool of storytelling. And your presentation today showed it again. I think you're a very good storyteller. Thank you very much.
We have one more question.
Thank you for the intriguing presentation. You urged us to think about why the lighting is needed. We don't question about safety, but do we need aesthetics? And is aesthetical aspect sufficient for answering the question why? Thank you.
The master would say to the student, you understand? We need all of those things, but we need to understand, each time we approach a project, we need to understand again what are the specifics of that project. If someone says that we only want safety, let's respect that. But we can do safety aesthetically. For instance, park lighting here locally has been done. There's one park, can't remember the name, super aesthetic, absolutely safe. So they're not contradicting things, and that's what I also want to point out. There's very often this strange kind of controversy where lighting designers that come from that aesthetic approach, they might have a background similar to mine, coming from photography, entertainment basically, and then trying to create that storytelling with light. And then supposedly on the other side of that we have engineers. It doesn't really work that way. I myself worked 7 years in an engineering office, so it's just about finding the right light for the right client and for the right stakeholders. And it's not an easy task. That's why you need lighting designers. I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah.
Thank you, Jari, for this excellent presentation.
Aitäh.